So the question we want to ask is, how do you calculate consumer and producer surplus with a traditional supply and demand curve? So let's go ahead and look at that. So here our blue is representing our demand curve, which is represented by this equation, 40 minus 1/10 Q. And our supply is represented by this equation, P equals 10 plus 2Q, 2/10 to Q. So the question is, well, how do we find our quantity supply, quantity demand? Well, what we'd want to do is set our supply equation equal to our demand. So we do 10 plus 2/10 Q is equal to 40 minus 1/10 Q. And this will give us the Q right there. So let's solve that. So subtract 10 from each side. So we'll get 30 equals, let's add 1/10 Q to each side, which will give us 3/10 Q, and then multiply by 10 over 3, so those cancel. And so Q is equal to 300 times 10, or 30 times 10, which is 300, divided by 3, is 100. So Q star is 100. Well, now we want to find P star. Well, the way we find P star is we take this Q and we can put it either into the demand equation or the supply equation. Either way works because we're going to get the exact same answer. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it back into my supply. So in that case, I get P is equal to 10 plus 2/10 times Q, which is 100. So that's going to be 10. So I get 10 plus 2 times 20. P star is 30. Now, if you don't believe me, let's take 100 and put it into this equation here, our demand. So we get 40 minus 1/10 times 30, or 1/10 over 100. So that would be 40 minus 10, which is 30. You get the same answer. So now that we have that, what we want to do is calculate consumer surplus, which is this area right there. So consumer surplus is 1/2 base times the height. In this case, it's 1/2 the base, which is 0 to 100, times the height, which is 40 minus 30. So starting at 40 and coming down to 30. Okay, and that number is 10. So here we get 1/2 times 100, so we get 50 times 10. Consumer surplus is 500. Okay, we can do that and then now ask what producer surplus is. So producer surplus is the area under the price but above the supply curve. Producer surplus is also 1/2 base times height. So 1/2, the base again is also 100. And the height here is 30 minus 10, because we're going from 30 down to 10 as our height. So that number is 20. So we get 50 times 20, where our producer surplus in this case is 1,000. So based on this market, consumer surplus is 500 and producer surplus is 1,000.